Sharing your faith with an unbeliever can be one of the most intimidating and daunting experiences for any believer, no matter how long or short you've been a Christian. So, in this video, I will share a little bit about my personal struggles I experienced when sharing my faith and why I'm creating this channel. So, hopefully, you'll be better equipped to share your faith with unbelievers. I started to write this introduction video several times over several months, and actually, I really could never come up with exactly what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that I'm answering Jesus's call, and like to say that I am motivated by the fact that my father was an atheist for most of his life. And I wonder what I could have said, that may have changed his mind, and how he could have had an influence over others in his life if he had become a Christian sooner. And I'd like to say that I have this huge heart for people who are unsaved, and that I just want them to live happier lives. But a lot of the time I don't have as much love for them as I could, and I put my own concerns first. I'd also like to see that I want to help others to have a crusade of evangelistic opportunities for themselves, and to bring people to Christ, and to live out the Great Commission and find great joy, and really find what is their purpose through witnessing to others. But to tell you the truth, that's not really a motivation either. In fact, most of the time, the main motivation has been to put out a video and audio and blog and website and every other type of media, including social media, the arguments that I have inside my head with non-believers. I don't even have as many debates with non-believers as I'd like to, because, it's hard to confront them and to set up a time and be courageous to ask them questions. And I'm afraid to ruin the relationship or hurt them, and it makes them feel uncomfortable, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. And aren't there, plenty of other things I'd rather be doing? And yet the conversation and the debate inside my head continues, because I think, well, they said this and I should have said that. And what a wonderful counter argument this would have been. And I replay the conversations I do have with people in real life. And, I realize there's a Yiddish word for that. It's called Trepberger. Literally translated means the words thought of on the steps. It's the perfect thing that you thought to say just as you were leaving the house, and the conversation's too late and it's over. And I can compose those fabulous debates when I'm not in front of a person. And so I thought, maybe I'm not the only one. And maybe there are people who would like to bring a family member or spouse or a loved one to Christ, and they don't know what to say. And I'm not talking about those people who are crying out to you and hurting, and they come to you and they say, gee, my life is not all that great, and you seem to have some joy, and can you help me? And they're sincere and they're honest, and they're really looking for something, and their hearts are softened to Jesus. What a wonderful joy and privilege it is to bring that person to Christ, to lead them in prayer of salvation. But that person is ready. They're open to accepting Christ. At that moment, they don't need you to defend your faith using apologetics. I'm talking about the person who's, really quite seemingly content and doesn't need anything, and has a variety of different arguments why they don't believe, and they don't really need anything, and they're really not, they're just kind of going along to get along. And this talk of Christ and the belief that we have all just seems kind of very much of a nuisance to them. And, they've got intellectual reasons and they've got emotional reasons. And sometimes those two things are tied together. In fact, most of the time, those two things are tied together. And how do you untangle all that? Do you share, or do you pursue them? Do you do the work that it takes to get them to at least think about it? And why are they here in this place where they just don't believe? Have you really thought about it? Have they really thought about why they don't believe? I mean, the biggest decision really in their lives, and it's a matter of life and death. And for them and their unsaved family, if they have unsaved family, it's a matter of life and death for them too. And yet they just dismiss it with kind of a cursory thought, I think, in a lot of cases. And, how do you convince them, that it's right to look into it further? Because, that's all you're doing. You're not going to convince them to change their minds. More than likely, you're just going to get them to think. And it may not be that they, change or even think about it at that moment. It may not be the next month. It may be the next year or a year later. And something you said comes to mind and they think, let me look into that. Maybe now is the time. Maybe some tragedy does befall their lives and they decide to really take a strong look at what's in the Bible and what did Jesus have to say. And it's your conversation that was the catalyst for that. Something in their brain, remember something that you said, and it got to them. Maybe they question evolution. Something got them to think, maybe there's something beyond this life. And they start. And it's just that small opening that Jesus is waiting for, because he will meet them. He will supernaturally meet them more than halfway. And I've seen it happen in my own life. And I've seen it happen in other people's lives where he will meet that need. So how do you become that person? The person that moved them one step closer to really thinking about it. And that's what this channel is about. It's doing all that, and it's support for when you're ready to do that. And it's the first steps on how to get started on this, because it's not an easy project, right? And well, I hope you'll watch the video. And I hope you'll gain something from these videos. And I hope that you'll just talk to one person, and hopefully you'll talk to more than just one person. And sometimes that's all that it takes. I'm going to leave this introduction with one story. There's a pastor at Grace Woodlands Church in Woodlands, Texas. And his father was a real estate agent, and he was taking a couple to see a home, and the couple was in the back seat, and he was driving, and the woman said, "Are you a believer?" And he said, "No." And she shared with him just a few cursory points about Jesus and, what it meant to her. And it touched that man so strongly that he left Canada with his family and children and his wife and the whole 9 yards. And he closed up his real estate practice and he moved to Argentina. And since then, he's brought millions of people to Christ. He runs several missionary churches. Just that one conversation was all it took. And maybe you're that person that's going to have that one conversation that's going to bring millions of people to Christ. I hope so. Until we meet again.